Partial fractions. We have three general formula for partial fractions. The first one, if we have a fraction with several factors in its denominator, we may further separate them into partial fractions. The advantage is that each of these partial fractions only has a constant in its numerator, so it will be easy for us to use it later. In the second general formula, if one of the factors in the denominator has a square, then we will have to separate it into two partial fractions. The first fraction only has the factor as its denominator. The second one would have the factor squared as the denominator. The third general formula, if we have a quadratic factor in its denominator, then we would have to give a numerator with one less degree than the denominator, bx plus c in this case, which is one less degree than the denominator, which has a square. Points to take note when we are doing partial fractions: all denominators must be fully factorized before we can split them into partial fractions. Numerators must be smaller than the denominator, so please check with the question before you start separating them into partial fractions. If the numerator is larger than the denominator, then we will have to perform a division and convert the fraction into a mixed fraction before we start to separate them into partial fractions.